Hello there. Welcome to Goddess Vibrations. Our topic tonight is melting trauma in the body through pleasure. And I'm going solo tonight. I was planning this episode with my co-host Kirti, and she needed to attend to some family matters, which is such a good segue into this topic, because that's what we need to do when something happens. Normal things of life, traumas happen. Some good stresses happen, births, marriages, but deaths, divorces. These things that pop up either expectedly or unexpectedly in the cycle of life. How often do we take the time to be with them and sit through them and process the emotions appropriately, so that we don't need to stuff them down and bury them and have them coming up at inappropriate times. And so if you saw my newsletter that I just sent out to remind you of the show tonight, I shared one of my favorite quotes by one of my mentors, Dr. James Gordon, the co-founder or the founder of the Center for Mind, Body Medicine, Washington, D.C., and he's also the co-founder of my PhD program. But he says that it's not the trauma that damages us, it's how we process and release it. So we're going to be talking about processing and releasing through pleasure. And what I'd like to do is first define pleasure. And even before that, I want to just say to anybody, for those of you who are tuning in because you've seen the show before or you regularly follow me, you know that I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. You know that I have been in a PhD program for mind body medicine the last 7 years. I'm in the dissertation phase, currently taking a break to focus on my children and my business. Again, world trauma, pandemic. How well do you process and release? I've got my priorities straight, right? So taking care of my family right now as well. And so what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about this from both my professional background, which I'm trained in just about every trauma modality there is in my 20 years of being a social worker and therapist and working in clinical settings with all kinds of different people, immigrants, people with severe mental health issues. Lots of trauma is what the common thread was. But even with all of that training, I don't feel that my work was as effective until I started training at the Center for Mind Body Medicine about 12 years ago. And what happened when I started training at the Center for Mind Body Medicine is I learned how to take care of myself as a healer, because many of us are out there wanting to heal the world or trying to heal the world, but we haven't really addressed our own shadows or our own trauma yet, or maybe we haven't addressed it enough to be able to manage ours and somebody else's. And I would say that this is one of the problems in the world right now too, is that there's so much trauma, there's so much happening, and we're expecting other people to be able to hold our pain, but they can't. They don't have the bandwidth because they haven't addressed their own. And so the idea is when we heal ourselves, then we can create more space to hold the pain and help others move through. And I'm not saying that you do the work for them. I'm saying that you provide this healing space and this healing relationship, because I'll tell you what, most traumas happen in relationship. Whether, again, it's a divorce, it's a relationship breakup, it's an abusive situation, even when it's a world crisis or a world event like an earthquake or a flood or a hurricane, it's happening to a whole community of people, right? So it happens and it affects relationships. And just like how trauma affects the body, it needs to be, we need to address the body to heal it. When it's affected by within a relationship, we need to heal it in relationship. So that's not only a relationship with a healer and a trusted, trained professional that knows and is experienced in holding your most vulnerable stuff and knowing what to do with it, but also, and how to move you through, but also how can we open our hearts to others, our communities, our lovers, our friends, our family, right? And that's very hard to do when we're stuck in our own pain. And some people stay stuck there for their entire life and they die, they go to the grave without doing this healing work. And then the cycle repeats in the next generation, right? And so what I want to do is to keep that from happening to you. If you are willing to be the one that breaks the cycle, if you're willing to be the one that says it stops with me, and it stops by, looking at my own pain, my own trauma, my own heart. And so when I got into the field as a therapist and a social worker, I think I naturally gravitated to the healing fields for many different reasons. It was an interest in people, an interest in psychology. It was my nurturing and motherly and caring and big sisterly energy. But it also was easy to go into that field as a means also of trying to heal my own pain that I was still dealing with, right? And I thought on the intellectual level, I was at a place where I was okay because I could, process the trauma that happened to me as a child. I could talk about it pretty unemotionally, as if it was something in the past. It really didn't, I wasn't getting triggered very often. Maybe if I did, it was something that would probably trigger most people. Like if I had to work with like a sex offender and I'm doing therapy in the home with him and the child that he abused and he's really not on board with changing the the dynamics, like that was triggering for me. That would probably be triggering for most people as well. So I wasn't walking around messy and triggered, but I also as a healer was 40 hours a week working with these traumatized clients and going through their pain. And every time, being somebody who's very empathic, going through their pain, I'm also holding and remembering my own, and my heart is opening to them. And I wasn't always as good as I thought I was about leaving that at the door when I clocked out and I went home, right? And so it would sometimes take me the whole weekend to kind of release it and get myself back together again. And then I would start again. So the Center for Mind Body Medicine realized that this is common with a lot of healers. And Dr. James Gordon actually was as a Harvard psychiatrist. And he realized when he was going through medical school that the things that he was pressured to do as he was learning were not the things that created health. So how could he be an effective doctor and actually create health if he was being trained by this very kind of violent to self academic process of becoming a doctor? So he sought alternative healing, and then he, got the medical degree, and then he did the research on weaving this alternative healing into mainstream medicine and creating a bridge between East and West, right? So that we could use the best of both worlds to truly deeply heal. And I learned while training in that program how to keep my heart open and soft by being a human with my clients, by being by being less of a therapist and being more of a human, just going through life, right, with somebody else's pain. And so for me, it really melted. It melted me in a way that was unexpected and that I didn't even know that I needed to be healed. And one of the ways that it melted me was I still had some numbness, some blocked energy in my chakras, we'll use that word. And one of those areas where there was still, the energy was not completely flowing through was my pelvis. I had been sexually abused from a very young age. And having that abuse done in my body, and not only that, but a system, including some therapists who were protecting the perpetrator, who was also an older child, and felt like that perhaps it wasn't actual abuse, but my body registered as abuse. It knew it was abuse, right? And so these areas were frozen and shut down. And so if you've experienced trauma, you've probably experienced this numbness too. Because if you're getting an unwanted touch, and for those of you who are very energetically sensitive, this can even be like, this has happened to me too, unfortunately. I'm at a bar or I'm out in public and a man like puts his pelvis into my backside or grabs my pussy or, like helps himself to whatever part of my body he feels entitled to touch. Your body has an immediate response, and it has like a numbing response to shield you from that touch, right? And so if you've been sexually abused, and especially repeatedly, your body is constantly numbing. Now think about when you go to work out and you work out a muscle, your muscle is getting stronger and harder and firmer, right? Because of the repeated practice. Now, if something bad is happening to you and you're having to numb energetically, this happens physically. It also happens emotionally. You start to build barriers up against your heart, right? And you can absolutely function in the world, and maybe nobody would ever know. And you can still be a kind and loving person, but there's that piece that you're not fully enjoying life to the fullest. You're not experiencing this deeper intimacy that you could have both emotionally and sexually, right? And so this is something that was still blocked in me, and a lot of it was under my awareness until it finally released. And the way it released is going through this training program, learning how to be a facilitator of these groups and processing what was coming up for me as we move through mind-body techniques that were pleasurable. And so melting trauma through pleasure, I'm defining pleasure not in necessarily the erotic, although it could be. Pleasure I'm defining as something that feels good to the body, that creates natural endorphins, not substances. You might say, well, weed is natural. It comes from the earth. It's still an outside substance. So is caffeine. So is, whatever else. Caffeine creates dopamine. I feel pleasure when I drink coffee. I'm like, wee, I feel good. But until, the next day when I don't keep having the coffee, and then you get the withdrawal symptoms. So that's not a natural endorphin. It's still induced by something outside of the body. But when you realize how the body works, how you can use the mind and body together to create your natural endorphins, the body not only forgets how to feel pain and starts to feel relaxed, but then the trauma starts to come up to be processed and released because it's safe, because you're starting to unthaw and you're starting to melt, right? And so for me, we were practicing all of these mind-body techniques in this group. It was a very small, intimate group. It was safe. There was a safe container. There were guidelines and rules and a structure where I knew pretty much what to expect. And I was witnessed and heard, and these were other professionals that were working with me in this field, right? And we were all realizing that, yes, we were wounded healers, as most healers are. How can you heal another person if you haven't gone to those depths and experienced, at least on some level, what these folks that you're trying to guide through have experienced, right? And so being in a group after this process and shaking the body and doing kind of like stirring the Kundalini energy through shaking and breath. And we've been doing breath work all week. We've been eating super nutritious foods and cleansing the body through the cellular nutrition system. I felt this energy come up through my feet and go up my legs. And I felt it kind of pause in my pelvis, where normally that kind of energy would stop and kind of, decrease or numb or just barely trickle through. And I felt it push through my pelvis. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen now? I felt the warmth come up through my belly to my chest. It got stuck in my throat, and it caused excruciating pain. You know that pain when you don't want to cry and the tears are stuck in your throat and they won't come out. They're just stuck, and it's like all of this tension in your throat. That's what happened, just excruciating pain. And then finally that released and burst open and came out through tears, flooding down my cheeks. And at this point, I was in a large group session with probably a couple hundred people. And at this point, I was a very buttoned up professional, and I was not used to moving my body in any kind of way in front of anybody, because I use my mind to help people. My mind was open, my body was not very open. Also, I worked at a high school at the time, with teens that, needed help with boundaries or whatever else. And so in general, I stayed pretty buttoned up. If they wanted a hug, it was a side hug, these sorts of things. I was very, kept my body energy to myself. And so this was a big deal for me, even to be like shaking and looking silly in a big, huge group of people. So after that happened, it was a gradual progression to really clearing the things. Well, I want to say gradual, but it happened, over a couple year process where it was really clearing the things out of my life that were blocking my heart from staying soft and staying open. Eventually, what that ended up being is that I ended up divorcing and leaving my marriage that I did not feel could provide the intimacy that I now was capable of. I ended up leaving my job, which, though I was good at it and I felt like I was making a difference in the lives of these kids, it was the caseloads and the way things were done were robbing me of so much of my vital energy. And I wanted to put that towards my children first instead of other people's children first. And so I ended up leaving my job at the public school system, and I went into entrepreneurship full-time in 2015. And my life began to shift in amazing ways. And when I cleared that initial, that trauma and fully melted my body, I was doing a lot of meditation at the time, again, creating pleasure, endorphins, natural endorphins. The cells of the body forget to feel pain. And simultaneously, I was learning the research of this stuff in my PhD program. So I was also experiencing a tremendous amount of academic pressure and stress, but also, ironically, learning about the research on how to avoid and manage stress to improve immunity and prevent chronic illness. So it was talk about like really having the opportunity to practice what I was learning, right? Not everybody embodies this. People go and get PhDs, they learn this research, they do the research, but they don't always embody what they're learning. I chose to embody it and not let the stresses of that get in my way, but it was a tremendously stressful. Many PhD students commit suicide under those academic and financial pressures of what that program can do. And that wasn't going to be me, right? I was also going through a divorce that lasted almost 4 years and constantly going back and forth to court. It was very contentious and retaliatory, not on my end, but on the other end. I was playing defense while managing this other stuff. And it was a lot of stress. That trauma, again, here it is, trauma again, right? I already healed this other childhood trauma, and now this new trauma is coming, but I had learned the skills. I had learned how to move through it. I had learned the practices. I had learned that everything that had happened to me earlier in life was only preparing me for an even bigger purpose. That was preparing me to move through even quicker, to move through even faster and deeper and more pleasurable, and to help others do the same by embodying it and being an example of that and sharing with people, this is what I do, this is what I have done, right? So that's been this unfolding process. And here I thought I had a couple years to just coast, and then we get hit with a global pandemic, right? And this has been hard for a lot of people. Some people are sailing through a little bit easier, but not one single person has been untouched by this. When the pandemic first started, I offered a virtual group. This is my kind of a miniature version of these groups that I do. I offered as my first time offering it virtually, even though I've done these groups for over 10 years and help people heal through them. It was wildly successful. I had 2 groups of 10 people running concurrently. I'm hoping that I can share with you soon some testimonials from some of the folks. I'm a little hesitant sometimes to ask people for testimonials because I want to honor their privacy. And these can be very intimate groups, and sometimes people have a hard time being seen, right? So I am hoping that I'll have some folks that have shared with me how meaningful and healing these groups have been, are brave enough to come and share their story with you as well, like I'm sharing my story with you. And I am starting in a week another round, not only of these groups, but a whole mind body healing year-long program with a full curriculum, as well as the community support and an ongoing aftercare program. And this is for people to heal the little traumas, the big traumas, but really what it is to create healing within relationships. So one person might join this group because they're having relationship struggles and they can't seem to find intimacy in their romantic relationships. And there's an unknown block and they're not quite sure what it is, right? So they might join to explore that and create this intimacy within this small group. It's only 10 people that we accept into this group, by the way. Other people might join because they're going through a chronic health issue and they're stressed, like I was going through my divorce and the PhD program, and they just need a space where they can be safe and they can practice and show up. I know for me, unless I pay for a class or I pay for a coach, it's so easy to cancel on myself. It's so easy to go a month without even going to the gym or calling, somebody, or giving myself that space. But when I invest in something and I say, I'm going to show up because we as a group are saying that we're going to do this and we're going to go on this journey together, I show up and amazing things happen in my life, right? So it might be that you're going through something. It might be something as simple as you want to undo any damage that was done in this past year with the pandemic. You want to use this opportunity to get as healthy as you can, mind, body, spirit, and to learn skills to move through whatever other fallouts might be coming that we're not even aware of yet, or anything else. World disasters, again, divorces, breakups, crises in the family. I know what initially got me back into therapy as an adult wasn't even my marriage. It was my family. It was the ripples happening in my extended family and the stress that was causing me. And so I went back into therapy for several years, and I met with a therapist every 2 weeks or so, sometimes every 3 weeks, to kind of process that and to, figure out where I stood and to set boundaries and be assertive, right? And then it's like the work is never really fully done. We're always working at improving our relationships and improving our health because things are always changing. People are always changing. People are going through things. The world is changing, right? And I'm gonna look. I can't really see any comments, so I don't know. Let me just double check this box. I'm opening it up. So if you want, for those of you watching live, if you want to join this conversation, you have any comments, type it in. I should be able to see it now. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we all need a space to process and release. And what happens when we don't process and release, when we don't find the ways to naturally melt the trauma from our body, it's so under the radar. And that's the trauma that's really dangerous, you guys, because the trauma that you get when you come back from like combat or something like that, that's pretty obvious. The fireworks go off, you're triggered, you see something on TV that reminds you of the trauma you went through, you're triggered. Like that's pretty obvious. And then you know where your work is. But some of these other deeper things that we push down, and they're more unconscious because we can function. We do okay at a job. We have friends, all of these things, but there's just something missing, right? Like we're not quite getting our career goals where we want to be. We're not quite getting our relationship where we want to be. And we just feel like we're not content or we're not satisfied. That's a good sign that there's something missing that you still are not aware of that could be unearthed and explored. And what I love about the process of this group that we're doing. And by the way, Kirti's not with me tonight, but her partner, Shofar Graves, is an amazing energy healer, Qigong teacher. He does traditional Chinese medicine. He's going to be co-facilitating this group and doing Qigong in the group, which is a mind-body medicine, energy medicine technique, a type of moving meditation. And this group is all virtual, so we're going to be doing it kind of in our chairs or standing up, to charge energy, bring vitality to the body. But it also, there's some research that Qigong also helps heal depression. It helps prevent cancer. Really good, studies on this. And so this is we're going to integrate this into the group. So it's going to be a very powerful group. And when you're doing stuff like that, like you're learning Qigong and you're starting the group with doing this mindful movement, the rest of your day feels aligned. You feel clear. You feel aligned with your purpose. It's not, and then you're starting to heal because now you're managing what's going on in your life, but you're also releasing and clearing out energetic debris of whatever's blocking you, right? And then each week we're talking about a different topic. We're talking about a different technique. And so the week prior, you're practicing the one you just learned. And then you're reporting back. What did you notice when you use that technique every day, right? What did you notice when you put last week's awarenesses into practice in your life? And then you're bringing that stuff back to the group that maybe you can't talk to anybody else about. Maybe you didn't even know was there. And that's the beauty of the group. There's so many different people in the group, but you realize when somebody else is sharing what's up for them, what's coming up for them, you're like, oh man, that reminds me of what I'm feeling. And you realize that we actually all have way more in common than we have differences. And I truly, truly believe that right now, it's more important than ever to find a way to connect, find connection points, because we are meant to be relationship creatures and we need each other. We need our communities. And even if you're like, I'm married or I'm in a healthy relationship, things are good, you need more than your relationship, especially in these transformative times. You need a community. You need like-minded others. You need a way to have not only a support system, but a support system where you can facilitate joy and laughter and positive experiences, and it's not draining you, right? I always say relationships are the most healing aspects of our lives and bring the most beauty, and they can also bring the most stress depending on how healthy they are. So it's really about creating healthy community too. And even with those folks that you don't think that you have much in common with, maybe they have a different religion, maybe they have a different political party, maybe they have, maybe you don't see eye to eye on some things. Where can you see eye to eye on? Can you hear their story and see the context and see what shaped them to have that belief rather than being invested in changing them? Anytime you try to change somebody, you're only going to reinforce them staying stuck. The only way that we can create change is to change our reaction to somebody. And so what I'm suggesting we do is change our reaction to people to an open heart, to love. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything they agree with. We don't need to be the same, but we need to approach people with unconditional love and acceptance, and to really be able to see them and hear them out. And then we have that choice also to say, you know what, this isn't the path I'm on. And I can love you and give you, all, see your beauty. And also we can go our own paths, or maybe it's somebody that, you want to keep in your life. And so this is the beauty of relationships. This is how we grow. This is how we create compassion, a wave of compassion across the planet. How is this landing for you guys? I see there's a few of you here live. Let me know if you have any questions. I could talk about this for a long time, but I have been going for 30 minutes and it's a little bit interesting not seeing faces and not having another guest on here to talk with on this topic. Because this is goddess vibrations, and a lot of what we've discussed previously is sexuality, sensuality, empowerment through body sovereignty and owning your sexuality. I want you to know that, like I said in my post this week, everybody has experienced some form of sexual trauma living in this culture, whether it's the puritanical shame that's thrown around so much, or the opposite end of the mainstream porn culture that's about degradation and abuse and exploiting women and children. And I call it culturally appropriating a very powerful, intense, like spiritual, transcendent sexuality, and just taking like the surface level kind of like money shots from that, and sending that off for distribution to get as much money as possible. It's really exploitative, in my opinion. And then there's a whole lot of other research that goes into the dangers of porn, not only the addictive things, but also the fact that it can be so stimulating. It's like a substance, right? It's like you need more and more and more now to improve the same high. You're chasing this high, right? And it's really just a form of numbing. And I had a client, a teenage girl. She was 16, 15, I guess, when I met her. You would think she was a 33-year-old woman. She was like an entrepreneur already. Unfortunately, she was pimping other women as her business. But also she was like, I'm not a prostitute. I'm the one making the money. I'm the pimp, And I was like, okay, well, there's some level of empowerment of her life there. But she also she was in this business, not only because she wanted the money, but also because she was addicted to these exciting experiences. She had so much trauma in her childhood that she was going out every weekend to these parties and like almost getting shot and ducking and like all of this drama and flirting with, illegal activities and all of this stuff, so that she could be like, rah, and stimulate her nervous system, so she didn't have to feel depression and she didn't have to feel the trauma or process it. And most of the time what we're doing is we're trying to avoid the trauma. We're trying to escape it. And we're going to, again, porn, we're going to numbing through alcohol, through weed, through shopping, through all of these things that we do. For me, sometimes it's like scrolling and incessantly researching stuff online or whatever, and it's like, why do I even care? This is just me like trying to take my mind off of something, or trying to avoid feeling my feelings. And I catch myself and I'm like, okay, just relax, like just breathe, just chill out, right? And so I have to like incessantly go after information. So look at those ways that you might be doing that and slow that process down so that you can, start to heal that trauma. And so sexually, to have a good sex life, to have a very responsive and healthy libido, we have to have a healthy nervous system. It has to respond when there's an appropriate trigger, and it has to be able to calm when it's time to calm, right? And so the more we do meditation, the more we do yoga, the more we do, and by the way, I did a research paper on both yoga and ADHD, and then which has to do with the nervous system and the brain, right? And then I did a research paper on mindfulness and female sexuality. And I found that people that are long-term meditators or long-term yoga practitioners, which is another type of moving meditation, have better mental focus, and they can control their thoughts a little bit more, and they can control what they put their attention on. And they also have better sexual experiences, self-reported. They experience more incidents of extraordinary sex, right? Rather than just ordinary sex. And so you really want to look at having really good nervous system health in order to have these extraordinary sexual experiences. And how do you have good nervous system health? You heal your trauma. So my PhD in mind body medicine is also called psychoneuroimmunology. It's all about the nervous system. It's all about how the brain and the gut and the body responds, and the things that we can do to heal that connection, that relationship between all these biological and emotional systems, to keep stress low, keep the nervous system healthy, avoid chronic illness. And then the other end of that is to have high immune system, high sexual responsivity, high levels of joy, all of these things. So now you get to see how all of these things are related, how the immune system is related to sexuality, right? How the nervous system is related to the immune system and to sexuality. How sugar, by the way, is related to sexuality. That's another thing we do to numb unconsciously, because sugar actually, remember when I talked about when you get unwanted touch and your body kind of numbs? Sugar does that too. Sugar will numb you. And so your body will do it unconsciously, but we also unconsciously grab for things outside of us to produce that numbing. And so the crazy thing about sugar is it's 8 times more addictive than cocaine. It's inflammatory. It inflames every tissue of the body. And there was a study done, I learned about this from Dr. Christiane Northrup, where, when mice would put their little paws on hot plates after ingesting sugar, they would leave them on the hot plates longer, suggesting that the sensitivity just wasn't there. So if you're looking for an extraordinary sexual experience and you're just a sugar junkie, you're not going to be as sensitive. Just like if you're a porn junkie, you're not going to be as sensitive. You're wanting to be sensitive if you're wanting this big, spiritual, amazing, extraordinary experience. You're wanting to create more sensitivity in your body. That means we have to melt, we have to open, we have to have a healthy nervous system, also immune system. And because, if we're ending up with chronic illnesses, now we're on medications that we have to take because we've already let our health get that far without realizing the changes that were happening over decades. And now that medication has side effects, and we have to now deal with the side effects too. And so one thing that happens in this group, this mind body healing group that I do, that I warn people at the beginning, if you're currently taking a medication, you're going to have to go back and check with your doctor throughout the group, because often their bodies will start to self-heal with these mind body practices, and they'll need to lower their medications. For me, when I did a 3-week detox, nutritional detox, and I was doing yoga and mind body practices in order to prepare to begin my PhD program, I wanted to be as healthy as I possibly could before I started, because I knew it was going to be a marathon. I accidentally healed my thyroid. I had been exposed to toxic mold, but also, like I said, I had a very distressing marriage where I felt like I often wasn't heard or couldn't speak my truth. I developed low thyroid, and I was on Nature Throid for a while I was started to eat organic and started to heal my lifestyle. It took about 1 or 2 years making these lifestyle nutritional changes, and I was on the smallest little dose of Nature Throid. I kept going down and down and down and down, and then I did this 3-week nutritional detox that was published by Dr. Mark Hyman. You probably, a lot of you probably know him by now. He's got over 1 million followers on Instagram now, but this was back when he wasn't as well known. And I ended up I went into hyperthyroid, and I was sweating, and I couldn't tolerate the medication anymore. So my doctor had to take me off of it. And that was 7 or 8 years ago. I haven't been back on it since. So I think it's healed. So I can't say that my results are going to be the same as your results. I'm not giving you medical advice by sharing my story. I'm only sharing what has happened for me. I could share a lot of other things that have happened for my clients. But what I really want to encourage you to do is do some of this deeper healing. If you want to join me in my group, I have a couple spots left. You'd have to register by Friday to get going, because we start on Monday. when you do this deep healing, you don't need those numbing substances, whether it's the sugar or the drink or the weed. I mean, sure, use that stuff as a celebration. Use it occasionally. That's what it's there for. It's not meant to be a daily practice. It's not meant to be a daily habit. And if we're really honest with ourselves, that's not true pleasure. That's depending on something to get through the day. And you don't need to do that. You can find a deeper level of wholeness and joy, I promise you. And you can go so far after you've created that. So I think to end this, I'd love to do an imagery with you if you're open. Are you guys open to that? Since I'm here solo tonight. And by the way, our Mercury retrograde bedtime meditations will be starting up again September 27th. So that's coming. And the past seasons are on my YouTube channel as well. So if you want to see what we do there, you can go look at some of those. But for now, the way that I'd like to end this, unless anybody has any questions, doesn't look like it. Does not look like it. I would like to guide you through a guided imagery, which is like a meditation. It's a visualization of what your life could be like without trauma. So if you healed your trauma, right? And so I want to do, so there's a lot of meditation, a lot of guided imagery that happens in my group, my mind body healing group. It's called Inclusion, by the way. So if you go on my website, you can flip through my tabs and it'll say Inclusion. And my website obviously is right here on the screen, natashaedwina.com. So we do a lot of this guided imagery meditation of different types in the group. You get to have a buffet and see what works well for you. But there's a couple things that happen with imagery. There's kind of two main ways that it works. And imagery, by the way, can be what you see, but it could also be what you hear, what you feel, what you smell, what you taste. All of the senses are actually imagery. So when you close your eyes and we go into this, if you don't see anything, maybe you just have a feeling, or maybe a thought of something, or a flash of an image, or a sound, or something comes up. That's all considered imagery. So I want you to know that. As I'm leading you, you are also getting in touch with your inner wisdom. Why? Because we're slowing it down. We're slowing down the nervous system. And as you're getting in touch with your inner wisdom, you're going to start to get answers that no coach, no doctor, no healer could ever give you, because it comes within, and you've been with you the longest, right? So you know, deep down, your subconscious knows what it is that you need for your life. It knows those solutions, right? And so you're going to get some crumbs, some inner wisdom. And what I help guide people to do is to guide them back to themselves and guide them back to their soul wisdom. So they're needing to rely on others less, and they can trust themselves and trust their body, right? And become, again, here's this word, more sensitive to your brilliant body and mind and everything that you don't know that you actually know, and getting access to that, right? So when I also do hypnosis, and when I do hypnosis, I call it like a portal to your answers. You know, I facilitate a relaxing experience to send you into that portal. But this is not hypnosis. This is a little similar because it's imagery. Hypnosis is the language of imagery, but we're going to do an imagery. And today is the perfect time to do it because it's a new moon, and the new moon is in Virgo. And so a lot of people like to do ceremonies, or by ceremony, I mean just doing something ceremonially to celebrate the new moon. And so that might be lighting a candle and making a cup of tea and writing in your journal. That might be pulling some cards, or singing, or chanting, or doing some, stretches, or dancing. It could be sitting around a fire. It could be in communion with others. There's many different ways to create a ceremony. In this mind body healing group that we're doing, that's what we're doing. We're meeting in a ceremony every Monday night. So you'll get to experience that. And that's why it's so pleasurable to do this healing in this way, right? But here's the new moon in Virgo. So Virgo is about action. It's an earth sign. It's about doing what needs to be done to make your dreams happen. It's about putting into action. So I'm going to show you through this meditation, or guide you back to yourself, who's going to show you what it is that you need, what you are moving toward. But then it's going to be up to you to take action. And you're going to have to either find the guides, do the things, make the changes, do whatever. And that's not easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's not easy to do. There's the visioning, and then there's the plan. Luckily, I'm a Taurus, so I can see the vision, and I'm very patient with how long it takes me to get there. And because I don't give up and I just keep plugging away, and I'm very patient, and I'm bold, and I just go after it, most things that I desire in my life, I've been able to create. So this is what we're going to do. I invite you to get into a comfortable space. If you're worried that you might fall asleep, please sit up like I'm sitting up, and keep your spine straight. And then begin to connect with the breath. We're going to relax the body first. And then we're going to move into our vision for the future. And so to prepare the body to be open and creative, we need to release any stress. So I invite you to let any stress from the day just melt into your chair. In whatever way feels right for you, visualize it just melting out of your body and sinking into the chair. The chair is now a sponge. Then wringing that sponge out and seeing all that stress go back into the earth as fertilizer to be transmuted in the soil. Just notice how soft your belly is when you breathe, and notice if you might be able to soften it a little bit more. And allow the lungs to expand a little bit more when you inhale. And since we're creating relaxation, I invite you to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. We're really aiming at turning on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response. Breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Letting the belly be soft, letting the shoulders be soft and dropping away from the ears. Letting the muscles of your face be soft. Letting your eyes just float back in your head. And already you're creating pleasure in the body. Just by taking these long, slow, deep breaths, by relaxing. You're creating waves of relaxation. When your lungs expand, it stimulates the vagus nerve, which lies behind the lungs. It goes all the way up to the brainstem. Your body is beginning to forget about any pain or any stress as it focuses intentionally on relaxation and pleasure. True sustainable pleasure, this untapped, unlimited well that you have access to when you know this body science. When you know the science of the breath. Now we're going to bring in some imagery, a little mental journey on this new moon. So I want you to come along with me if you're open. Imagining yourself back in the womb, preparing to be born. Complete, whole, and perfect being, a beam of light, fresh and new into a physical body. Healthy immune system, healthy microbiome. And let's imagine that your mother was very well taken care of during her pregnancy. She was happy. She was well nourished. She had the best medical care. Your father was present emotionally and physically, treating your mother like a queen. And you just soaked up and absorbed all of her happiness, all of her laughter, all of her pleasure. In the womb, just happy. Maybe sucking on your thumb. And you're born through a healthy birth. Perhaps with others around, again, even though your mother is experiencing the very natural and normal feelings of labor that the body must go through. Reminding her of what a transformative experience this is to create and birth a soul into this world. You are prepared. You don't know what you're getting into, but you're coming onto this planet whole and perfect, complete, and in awe for a new journey. And you are born into a beautiful, dimly lit room. Maybe there's candles and beautiful music playing. Your mother is well supported, again, by the best medical care, by loved ones in your family and cultural tribe. This is a day they've been awaiting for a long time. Everyone in this room is aware of the sacredness of your birth, of what is occurring. And as you grow and develop from a child to a toddler, or from a baby to a toddler to a child, you go through the normal bumps and bruises and experiences of life. Maybe, just maybe, some of those same traumas that you experienced in this current life are there. But instead, your caretakers have the skills to move you through them very quickly. They're very present and attuned to you. You have professionals helping you through. You have a community. You have healthy, nutritious food. You have everything you need to move through and heal these traumas. Process them very quickly so that they are now creating this strength of heart, this strength of character, this very wise and compassionate being. And your body is not holding on to any of those blocks or any of those undigested or unprocessed experiences that may be holding you back in your life now. I want you to see how your life is different. What are the quality of the relationships you're in with friends, with lovers, with a spouse or partner? What different choices are you making after having known how to process and release these traumas and having a supportive tribe to hold you as you move through these experiences of life? What would have changed about moving through grade school, middle school, or high school for you? How might your college career have been different? Or your military career? Or maybe you might have chosen not to go into the military, or maybe you might have made different professional choices. How would life be different had you been this supported and known the skills to move through these experiences of life without them creating damage for you in the body? How would your confidence be different? Your social skills, your social relationships. How would the way that you take care and love your body through exquisite self-care be different? Having only known others who treated you with exquisite self-care and each other with exquisite care, you wouldn't accept anything less for yourself, likely. What situations would you have said no to? What situations would you have said yes to? What life lessons would you have taken the shorter route through instead of the long, winding, repeating Groundhog's Day path of trauma on a loop, on repeat? Who would you be today? How would your life be different? What would you be doing for work? How would your family relationships be different? How would your romantic relationships be different? What would you have the confidence to pursue or to be or to become? If those traumas didn't happen, or if you knew how to move through them efficiently, effectively. See yourself as whole and perfect and complete. That same soul that was born, only wiser, more resourced, more savvy, more loving, here on this planet to experience joy, to spread joy, to live your purpose. See yourself healthy, fit, mentally and physically, emotionally, heart open, emotionally intelligent. Enjoying the beauty of this planet, enjoying the beauty of others, laughing, dancing, creating. Feeling unlimited, powerful, in control of your life. I want you to know that that you is there. It's already there. It's simply about unlocking it, about melting those unprocessed, undigested traumas, about setting yourself free to have the life, the career, the relationships that you most desire, that you crave, the deep intimacy, contentment, passion, extraordinary sex, extraordinary relationships, unbridled success, and whatever it is that you choose to put your passion into. This is all available to you once you remove the interference. Now I want you to ask your inner wisdom, what is one step I can take today, immediately after finishing this guided imagery? That is one step forward into this version of you. What needs to be done? How can you take action? You've seen the vision. You might even use that as your new moon intention. You might take an actual step forward into your intention, into this version of you. What changes do you need to make in your life? Who can help you? What community do you need to create to become this person? Feeling that whole complete version of you bubbling up through your solar plexus, your abdomen, feeling it like a pilot light that's growing, and that you're turning the flame on brighter, an inner fire, an inner passion that stokes your passion, that puts some heat under your seat to move, to show up for you and others in your life. Allowing that to spread as a warmth all through your body, all through your fingers and toes, up through your head, up through your crown chakra, up reaching your creator and your unlimited source of support in this universe. Be open to any messages that come to you in your sleep or in the days that follow this, that are signs, synchronicities guiding your path. And please, I encourage you to commit to yourself in doing this work, even though it can feel vulnerable and hard at times. It is so, so worth it on the other side. You've already seen the future. Now you can step into it. Bring yourself back very slowly, very gently. You can kind of sway your body or stretch. I like to roll my neck very gently when you're ready, fluttering your eyes open, coming back. Welcome back to this world. But now you've seen the new world, and it's up to you. What are you going to do? Tell me in the comments. Tell me what came to you. Tell me what your first action step is. What are you going to do tonight? What are you going to do tomorrow? I would love to hear. Or you can message me privately. You can DM me on Instagram. You can email me at hello@natashaedwina.com or through my website. And if you're interested in joining us in this year-long mind-body healing program and do more of this, it's called Inclusion, and you would need to be registered by Friday to come in, but those spots may sell out any day now. There's only a couple spots left. So would love to have you. And I would love to see you again next week on Goddess Vibrations. I'm bringing back one of your favorite guests, my sister goddess, Tara Cridlin, who's a women's sexuality coach. She's an expert in female anatomy, female pleasure. We are going to be talking about how to raise a goddess. So how to raise our daughters to be in charge of their bodies and to be sexually healthy in this sometimes messed up culture, and how we can empower them and how to talk to them about sexuality and encourage healthy sexuality in our girls and empowerment. So I hope to see you next week. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm always available for a message. Reach out if you need me. Good night, all.